Boxing is brutal inside the ring, but for some fighters, the real trouble starts far away from the ropes. In this video, we're looking at boxers whose names lit up the headlines for all the wrong reasons. From champions to cautionary tales, these are the men whose moments of glory were matched by moments of chaos, crime, and controversy. And stick around, because at number 7, we've got the story of the last man to defeat Muhammad Ali in 1981, and the shocking crime he committed will leave you speechless. First, Jermain Taylor, from champion to chaos. For a brief moment, Jermain Taylor had it all. A bronze medal at the 2000 Olympics, back-to-back wins over Bernard Hopkins in 2005 to become the undisputed middleweight champion. He was living the American dream. Hard work, talent, glory. You'd think nothing could break him. But boxing has a way of leaving scars you can't see. After a stint of tough losses between 2007 and 2009, including a brutal knockout by Arthur Abraham, Taylor faded from the spotlight. Then in 2014, against all odds, he made a comeback and even reclaimed a title by beating Sam Solomon. The cameras caught him smiling, holding a belt high, but behind that smile, his life was collapsing. It started with a shocking arrest, shooting a man in the chest at a barbecue. Reports say he calmly waited for the police afterward. Months later, he was in trouble again for threatening a group of children with a gun, reportedly shouting that he'd kill them all. From 2014 to 2017, he had new entries of domestic violence, property destruction in his rap sheet. Doctors said he had brain damage, possibly pugilistic dementia. But nothing slowed the spiral. Then came that viral 2017 video. Taylor, naked, screaming, stumbling in a hotel hallway. The man who once beat Hopkins was gone. Fans didn't know whether to fear him or mourn him. And if you think that's grim, wait until you hear about the next man, because his fall from grace ended not in scandal, but in blood. Second, Edwin Valero, the undefeated monster. A Venezuelan southpaw with a near-mythical aura, Valero compiled a record of 27 wins, all by knockout. Born in Mérida, Venezuela, Valero grew up in grinding poverty. As a teenager, he suffered a severe motorcycle accident that left him with a fractured skull and required brain surgery. From that point onward, he began experiencing strange mental symptoms, including hearing voices. Still, he climbed rapidly through boxing's ranks, winning world titles in 2 different weight classes. In 2006, the United States refused to license him to fight, so he traveled to Japan, then Mexico, demolishing opponents wherever he went. What's actually scary is Valero's violence was not just limited to the ring. At home, he was an abusive husband. His wife, Jennifer Vieira, endured repeated beatings, sometimes visible in public. In early 2010, she was hospitalized with head trauma, which Valero claimed was from a fall. On April 18, 2010, Valero walked into the lobby of a hotel in Valencia, Venezuela, pale and trembling. He confessed to staff that he had killed his wife. Authorities found her stabbed to death in their room. Hours later, Valero was found hanged in his jail cell, an apparent suicide. He was only 28 years old. His legacy is a paradox, a knockout machine in the ring, but a destructive man at home. Third, James Butler, from boxer to murderer. James Butler had real skill in the ring, a hard puncher with a flair for aggression. But his temper and instability would lead to one of boxing's most infamous moments. In 2001, after losing a charity bout against Richard Grant, Butler approached to shake hands. Then, without warning, punched Grant bare-knuckled, breaking his nose and leaving him bleeding in the ring. The act horrified the boxing world and led to Butler's arrest. But the worst was yet to come. In 2004, Butler was staying at the Los Angeles home of his friend, sports writer Sam Kellerman, younger brother of commentator Max Kellerman. An argument turned violent, and Butler battered Sam with a hammer before setting the apartment on fire. He pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter and arson, receiving a 29-year sentence. Butler's decline from a promising talent to a murderer remains one of boxing's most disturbing career endings. Fourth, Ike Ibeabuchi, the president's madness. In the late 1990s, Nigerian heavyweight Ike Ibeabuchi was seen as the next big thing. His 1997 bout with Tua remains legendary for its sheer ferocity. Ibeabuchi threw more than 1,000 punches, a record for heavyweights. However, those close to him noticed strange behavior. He claimed to be the president of the world, vanished for days without explanation, and exhibited sudden bursts of aggression. In 1999, Ibeabuchi's behavior reached a tragic point when he was accused of attempting to sexually assault an escort at a Las Vegas hotel. She escaped, and he was arrested, Psychiatric evaluations revealed he suffered from severe schizophrenia. Initially declared unfit to stand trial, he was eventually sentenced to between 2 and 10 years in prison. But he served nearly 17. This wasn't his first brush with violence. Years earlier, he had kidnapped his own son during a custody dispute. And so the man, once touted as the future of the heavyweight division, became a tragic tale of untreated mental illness. Fifth, Esteban de Jesus, championed a convict and a tragic death. In the 1970s, Puerto Rico had a new star, Esteban de Jesus. Fast, explosive, and technical, he was the first man to beat Roberto Duran as a professional. At just 21, undefeated, and a national hero, he seemed unstoppable. But behind the speed and skill was a dangerous weakness: drugs. Cocaine and heroin began to take control. Still, he managed to win the WBC lightweight title in 1976, but after losing a trilogy to Duran, he slid into obscurity. Then came November 1981. In a San Juan suburb, after an argument with a 17-year-old, De Jesus pulled a gun and killed the teenager. Sentenced to life in prison, his glory days were gone. The tragedy deepened when he contracted HIV in prison, becoming one of the first high-profile athletes known to be positive. He found religion, preached in prison, and even reconciled with Duran before dying of AIDS at 37. If Esteban's story shows how addiction and violence can destroy a champion, the next man proves that ideology can be just as destructive. All right, before we get into the next wild story, hit like, share this with your boxing crew, and subscribe. You don't want to miss what's coming. 6. Rubin Hurricane Carter, legend and controversy. Rubin Carter's story is one of the most debated in sports history. A powerful, charismatic middleweight, Carter's career came to a halt in 1966 when he was convicted of triple homicide in New Jersey. Many believed the trial was racially motivated, relying on questionable eyewitness testimony and lacking hard evidence. Carter proclaimed his innocence, becoming a cause célèbre for activists and celebrities, including Bob Dylan. After nearly 20 years in prison, his conviction was overturned in 1985. He emerged as a symbol of resistance against injustice, but there were questions. Carter had prior convictions for assault and robbery, and some investigators remained convinced of his guilt in the murders. 7. Trevor Berbick, champion, criminal, and a brutal end. Trevor Berbick holds a strange place in boxing history. He was the last man to fight Muhammad Ali, beating him in 1981, in what was a sad farewell for the greatest. Berbick would go on to become WBC heavyweight champion in 1986, fulfilling a vision he claimed God gave him at 16. Then came Mike Tyson, a hurricane, who knocked him out in just 2 rounds. But that loss wasn't the worst thing to happen to Berbick. Off the ropes, his life turned upside down. He was arrested and convicted for raping a 15-year-old girl in Florida, serving only 15 months before being deported to Jamaica. Back home, he tried to restart his career, but the fights were meaningless. Losses piled up, and with them came financial trouble and bitter family disputes. Then, in 2006, the nightmare reached its end. Berbick was found dead in a church courtyard, killed in a machete attack. The culprits? His own 20-year-old nephew and an accomplice, over a land dispute. His life had begun with visions of greatness and ended in senseless, bloody tragedy. But as dark as Berbick's end was, the next story takes us to a man whose downfall involved not just violence, but one of the deadliest diseases of the era. 8. Anthony Small, from title holder to extremist. Anthony Small, the slick British super welterweight champion of 2006, had speed, style, and swagger. But after retiring in 2010, his name became infamous for something far from boxing. Having converted to Islam during his career, Small's faith took a new turn. He appeared alongside extremist preacher Anjem Choudary, openly rejecting UK law and calling for Sharia. In 2014, he was arrested for allegedly trying to travel to Syria to join ISIS. Although acquitted for lack of evidence, his image was destroyed. He continued making extremist videos, targeting British soldiers, and promoting hardline views. Once known for his footwork, he became known for surveillance watch lists and banned appearances. But while Small's downfall was ideological, the next fighter's was a mix of booze, rage, and a complete inability to control himself. 8. Floyd Mayweather Sr. shadows behind the name. While his son, Floyd Mayweather Jr., became one of boxing's greatest champions, Floyd Mayweather Sr. lived a more complicated life. A skilled boxer and trainer, he was also involved in drug trafficking during the 1990s, serving 5 years in prison. This criminal past contrasted sharply with the clean, calculated image of his son, yet Floyd Sr. played a pivotal role in building that image and career. Today, he's remembered as both a mentor and a man haunted by past mistakes. Proof that the Mayweather dynasty was built not only on talent, but also on overcoming personal turmoil. These fighters took different roads, but they all ended up in the same sad place. Their legacies buried under mistakes, chaos, and wasted chances. Who knows what they might have been if they'd stayed on the right track? Maybe we'd still be talking about their greatness instead of their downfalls. Boxing isn't just about what happens in the ring. It tests your mind, your heart, and your discipline. Lose that, and the fight follows you forever. If you liked hearing these wild, unforgettable boxing stories, hit that like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.